Welcome back, Officers Republic. It's your Coruscant Underworld Police Chief, APGAINS. Today I wanted to talk about a core concept in, I don't know if this is back to basics, because this kind of happens at around 3 million GP, and again, probably around 5 million GP. So maybe not an episode of Back to Basics where we talk about pre-2 million GP stuff, though that series has been going quite well. Thank you guys for the support. But we're talking about, should you farm a Galactic Legend or a Galactic Legend ship? Now, there are various points in the game, in your farming process, in your journey, and your exploration into giving CG way too much money or time or will to live, or honestly anything that they don't otherwise deserve. You're eventually going to come to a point where you are going to begin a long farm, whether it's for the first time at around 3 million GP, for the second time around 4 million GP, and pretty much every subsequent million GP after that, because it generally flip-flops, but, you know, sometimes you want to double up, and sometimes you want to triple up, and sometimes you don't want to do one at all, and we'll talk about all of those scenarios depending on where your account's looking like. So what I'll do is I'll describe the general fundamentals of an account, and then when you hear the one that makes sense for what you have, you can kind of follow the instructions or just take some of the advice here and apply it to your own account. Okay, so we're at 3 million GP. What should we do first? Should we do a Galactic Legend ship? Should we do a Galactic Legend? Now, more and more so because of the ever-changing fleet meta, it has become incredibly popular to open up after you've done your core 8. You have a couple of auxiliary teams, maybe even have a backbone team to open up with the Executor prior to your first Galactic Legend. I am not here to dispute that. It comes down to the specifics. If your ships are really chortling balls, like you don't have any Get 2, no Pointy Boys, no Millennium Falcon, it can be quite advantageous for you to open up with an Executor, because realistically, unless you're like following the perfect farming guide to a T, there's going to be some things in your account that are not optimal, and we farm things to kind of, you know, to go back to the, oh no, my camera's gone. Ready? Technical difficult. The cube. Sometimes we just got a cube. Hashtag cube in the chat, boys. And what does that mean? That generally means we want to plug in holes that we have. So if your ships are really bad and your character's really good, maybe you have a backbone team, your full core 8, a couple auxiliary, it can be a very legitimate strategy to open up with the Executor. Conversely, if your ships are quite strong, you have 1 or 2 Get 2 ships, maybe 1 or 2 Pointy Boys for the Chimera fleet, you have your good Rebel Millennium Falcon fleet up and running, it's probably a better idea for a large majority of people. And I'd say most people kind of find actually more and more these days, ships are kind of going the way of the dodo. So I would say most people probably fall in the camp of having bad ships and need to open up with the Executor. But if you're being efficient with your account and you're being very min-max, very ideally farmed, you're going to open up with a Galactic Legend first. I am not here at all to talk about which Galactic Legend, though, JMK, that should be, not Jabba, whatever you do. Sorry. I'm tired, and as you guys know, this is an episode of APGAINS on business, where it's just APGAINS, but I'm not actually here. I'm many hundreds, if not thousands of miles away doing work-related stuff for an entire week, and I want to cry, and I need you guys to emotionally support me right now. Okay, so you have your first Galactic Legend, and you have all that stuff. You're going to follow up with an Executor. I think that's pretty much obvious. And conversely, if you open up with the Executor, you're going to want to follow up with a Galactic Legend. Now, let's say we have one Galactic Legend ship. It's probably the Executor and either JMK or JML, or sometimes SLKR, never Rey, occasionally Lord Vader, and prevailing now more so than ever, which is very strange, Jabba. But let's say we have one of each. Where do we go from there? Well, if our account looks fairly standard in that we still have our core 8, our auxiliary teams are good, and we've been building up a lot of backbone teams in that, you know, we have maybe a Malgus, maybe a Maul, maybe an Afra, maybe a Star Killer, maybe a Hondo Scoundrels team, maybe a Traya with double Omicrons on Traya and Savage. If we have lots of backbone characters, it's probably a good idea to, I'll be honest, probably grab another backbone character in a Jedi Knight Luke, into maybe a JML, into a Profundity. But if we're so strong on characters and we feel really comfortable and we haven't really had an issue with the defensive side of the board as far as Galactic Legends are concerned, it can be, you know, potentially viable to open up with a Profundity and then go back and get Jedi Knight Luke and get JML. So it really just depends. Honestly, like, if I'm being dead straight with you guys, it really depends on the number of backbone teams that you have. if you have a really, really, really large amount of backbone teams, excluding Jedi Knight Luke, where the fuck is Jedi Knight Luke? Excluding Jedi Knight Luke, you probably want to pick up that second GL fleet in the Profundity and then come back, grab Jedi Knight Luke, go into JML, Cal, and kind of have that whole string of farming there. If we're not doing so great on the backbone teams, we probably want to open up with Jedi Knight Luke, of course, gives us another backbone team, into JML, potentially even into Cal to have a JMK Jabba counter, and then go into Profundity and kind of wrap up at that point. Let's say we have, at that point, again, you grab a Galactic Legend, you're going to grab the Converse, and that's because the JML, the Jedi Knight Luke, JML, Cal, Profundity, somewhere in some order in that respect, is like God's gift to mobile gaming. I know Arnold says he's God's gift to mobile gaming, but realistically, the Jedi Knight Luke, JML, Cal Kestis, Profundity, farming path, whichever direction you tend to take, is CG's gift to mobile gaming, I guess, because it's just so unbelievably powerful for mid-game players. It is almost, I would say, in very rare situations, except for very, very, very weird situations, and I'm talking weird in the sense like the Mando only account, you know what I'm saying, where people are just, they don't care about being good at the game, they care about doing random shit just for the sake of doing random shit. Like, unless you're one of those people, it is like the only acceptable like mid-game farming like chain, I guess. So now maybe there's a couple of endgame players who are listening to this, and you have your 2 GLs and your 2 GL ships. What should you do? Well, if you're 2 and 2, and of course core, auxiliary, and strong backbone, you likely want to grab your 3rd Galactic Legend ship. And I know at the time of recording this, there's this huge controversy about how dog shit the Leviathan is. I predict it'll get patched by this Tuesday, which would be like less than a week after, like 5 days after the ship comes out for the first time. Every time they drop something big, it chortles balls, it sucks dick, it does all sorts of nasty things with all of its orifices and other phallic-shaped objects. That's just kind of the CG workflow. They put out dog shit, and then we gotta figure out what's wrong, and then they fix it, and then it's super powerful. So I imagine this fleet will get some sort of either rebalance on top of its bug fixes, or something will happen and it will be strong again. If you're watching this in a couple of months and that didn't turn out to be the case, maybe you should farm your Jabba or your Leia before you go for Leviathan. But as currently constructed, the Leviathan, as that 3rd Galactic Legend ship, should 100% come before any more Galactic Legends happen. Just by virtue of ships are infinitely more valuable than characters. There's kind of no other argument there to grab a Jabba or a Leia first. It's just, when you get to 6, 7, 8 million GP, like there's so many off meta counters, especially with random datacrons permeating, that an extra GL is not going to do, is not even close to the value that an extra GL ship is going to provide you at that point in the game. So I don't really think there's much arguing there. So as always, I love you. Join the Patreon, and you guys can obviously get roster reviews on streams or offline, but also you can join the Patreon exclusive Discord. You message me at any time on Discord or the Patreon app. And if you do join, and when you do join, because you do indeed love me, your money will go directly to sponsoring my trip out to Chicago to meet the Grand Admiral, go do some IRL content. Every single person who is a patron at the time of that will get a shout out from me and the Grand Admiral on the streams and videos that we do. So thank you there. And also, please, if you're an existing or new patron, let me know in a Patreon message directly what's something that you want there as far as content or activities or engagement or whatever to help make your monthly contribution worth keeping and not something that you end up dropping eventually. So as always, I love you, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.